Welcome everybody to Write Better Together. I am John Myers. Hey, look everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hey, John Myers.
Hey Emily, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, we've got quite the list. Because this is our episode 0, and so we have a lot to talk about and what this podcast is. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves. We're going to talk about why we're doing this and what it is. We're going to lay down some ground rules for ourselves. We're going to talk about popping our bubbles and what that means. And then we're going to have, as we're going to have every week, a call to action where you can actually respond and interact with us, because this podcast is about you.
If you stay till the very end, you're going to learn what this bag is about. There's a sneak preview right there. So, what do we do now? First, do we talk about ourselves or what?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Well, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you. So, what was I doing right before this came on? I will tell you what I'm doing, and I'll give you a snippet from my real life, and then you can do the same. So I'm in this writers group, and I don't want to say where or what for reasons that will become obvious later, and it's great. So don't think that those are negative reasons, because they're not. But I don't have permission to talk about them, and it's face to face. It's led by a best-selling author who you would know if I said her name, and there's about 40 of us in this room, and here's why I don't want to say where they are. So we meet every Monday night. So I was getting ready for this Monday's meeting before we hopped on here onto this podcast, and no one's done their homework except for me, and I'm the nerd that did my homework. And up until today, so there's 40 people. The second person, and so my homework has been up there for 2 weeks. I'm already ready to upload my second bit of homework, and but no one else had been on there. But then today, this morning, there was another woman on there who she posted her homework, and I was so excited. And it was I read it, and it was kind of memoir-ish, and I learned something from it, which this isn't the part of the podcast where we talk about what we learned, but I think it's important to bring it up because I was so excited about it. Because I read mine that everyone had read already, and then I read hers, and hers took place out in I want to say out in the woods. I can't even promise you that it was out in the woods. It doesn't matter because you're never going to read it. And but it was out in the woods. It was freezing cold, and she was in a cabin, I want to say, and her dogs were her blanket. So there was a blanket, but then her dogs were keeping her warm on the blanket. And then it was 3 pages. These are little short weekly writings, and off in the distance there was this warm light, and she was like trying to guess what the warm light was. Was it a fire? Was it a forest fire? And then on page 3 there were more uh, uh, different ways that evoked warmth. And so when I was done, uh, I was like, this whole thing, like if you said describe this piece of writing in one word, it was warmth. And which I will find out Monday if it was intended, if that was intentional, or she's just that's who she is organically, that she's just a writer who evokes warmth, because obviously this is a total stranger. I've never read anything that she's written before. And so I thought it was interesting. And mine doesn't mine's funnier than hers wasn't supposed to be funny, but it made me wonder. So I'm ready to post my second chapter now, and it made me wonder, like, am I too cold? Like, so looking at someone else's work made me re-examine my work, even though that's not why she wrote it. That wasn't the intention of it. And so that's what I was doing before it was time to come on and podcast. So what do you think about that, Emily?
Oh, I love that, because I do feel like that's one of the the benefits of being in a writing group or reading, I mean, even just reading other authors, figuring out what is it that makes this author, and you can kind of translate that to what makes my writing, because voice is one of those topics that it gets really confusing and convoluted, I think. But like that you could recognize, okay, there's a tone here, there's a specific feeling that I'm getting from this, and maybe I want to mimic that in my own.
It definitely challenged me to when I write. I'm calling them chapters. They're really just like little short pieces of flash fiction. But when I write chapter 3, to make it more warm,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of know where this little. I don't even know what they're just writing prompts, and we'll be giving you listeners, readers, watchers. We'll be giving you writing prompts at
Mm-hmm.
some point in our existence, and uh, so I don't have. I'm a screenwriter. We'll talk about who we are and what we do in a second, but I don't really have a purpose of what I'm going to do with these prompt things that I'm writing. But they could wind up in a scene in a screenplay someday, or they could wind up. I am working on a novel, so they could wind up a scene in there. But right now, I'm just having the enjoyment of jumping through the hoops and doing her prompts because they've been good prompts. I have a question
Yeah.
for you, Emily. Well, go
Yeah.
ahead. No, say what you're going to say first.
I was going to say that's something that I miss from grad school is the no pressure, just write you write something to turn it in, but then you're like, oh, I actually learned something from that. Like, because there was no pressure to publish it or to think about what I'm going to do with it. It was just like, well, I've been given this prompt and I have to do it. Oh, and I really enjoyed that, and I learned something about my writing that I wouldn't have otherwise.
And it was, I think it was better. Like mine's very good. And it was better, and I'm sure hers was too, because I knew people were going to read it. So that was also
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
my disappointment, because um there no one else had contributed into the group. And but so I upped my game because people were going to read it, but I didn't have any pressure. And we'll talk about that when we talk about why we started the group. But there's no pressure in this group
Hmm.
whatsoever, and I say that in a good way. Did you want to say something else before I ask you my question?
Nope.
Okay, so this will lead into the Who. I guess the Who's the next thing we're doing. And can you make that little swishy noise? That transition noise?
Oh, the
Yes, that
whoa.
means we're switching topics. Um, at the very end, we're gonna tell you we're an event that we're doing together. What? This is our first.
Yeah.
This isn't even our first podcast. This is a podcast. It's episode 0, but we're already doing an event together at the end of the month. And so we'll tell you about that at the very end. All right. Tell us about yourself, Emily.
Oh, so I'm Emily Brooks. I have been writing for a really long time, and I majored in English and creative writing for college, but then I got my master's in fiction and composition a couple years ago, and I now teach English composition and intro to lit. Oh,
And
and um, I also blog. So I write fiction primarily, but then I also have a blog, a website called emilybrookswriter.com. My blog is called Little Did She Know, and it's about um, it's primarily stories and reflections on just my experience with mental health and with faith and with creativity and how all of those things kind of come together for me.
so the reason that Emily and I are here together in front of you, and I'll tell you about me, and we'll talk about the why in a second. But so she's a brilliant memoirist, and so I wanted to. Eventually, we'll get to that part of a bigger project, but I needed a memoirist
Mm.
in this other project that we will do at some point. And then uh, but then in the summer, so we were in a summer seminar together, and with one of our mentors, Dr. Otto. Shout out to Dr. Peggy Otto. And uh, so I've read her fiction, and so she's good. She's a great fiction writer as well. But I remember, so it's interesting as we've been planning this, um, to get to know her more as a fiction writer, as a memoirist. But she's both, and and she's one of my favorite blogs that I follow. So that's why, that's how we wound up on camera together. So my name is John Myers. We've already established that. Everyone calls me John Myers. When I went to grad school, there were two Johns, and there's actually two Johns now without an H, because Emily's husband's name is also John without an H. And but there were two Johns, and I didn't want to be John without the H, and we didn't want to do Big John, Little John, Old John, Young John. We didn't want to do that. And so I just I'm fine with John Myers, and so I became John Myers. And then in grad school you wind up teaching, and at the end of grad school, well, what are your students going to call you? Well, I'm not in the titles, and so I am not a doctor. So I have an MA, an MFA, and a BA, and but I don't have a PhD. But if I did, I still wouldn't want you to call me doctor. And I don't even let my students call me professor. I'm just John Myers. And I don't even like Mr. as a title, right? I don't like titles. And so everyone calls me John Myers. It's the biggest thrill of my life is when I'm walking through the parking lot at TJ Maxx and I hear, "Hey, John Myers," and it's one of my students, and I can hear my name out in the wild. And uh, uh, it's just that's what people know me by, and so I'm letting you know that up front. And so I teach on and off at a university, as does Emily. I love so I teach various forms of writing. But I love my first year students the most, and we'll get into more about this in the when we talk about the why. And but I love new writers, and not that I don't love seasoned and experienced writers, because that's the other part of my life. And is so I'm a guest speaker at various writing conferences and film festivals across the country, and so those are at a writers conference. It's normally seasoned writers. They are equally good audiences to speak to. I just have I just like new writers. That's where my heart and my passion is. This podcast, again, we'll talk about the why. This podcast is for everyone, and so if you feel like I'm new and I've never written anything but a birthday cake, happy birthday. So there's I was gonna make this joke earlier and I forgot, but so I was gonna say that Emily and I are writing partners, and I write happy and she writes birthday on top of the cakes, and so
I do what?
We're partners, and I write happy and you write birthday on the cake. That's an Albert Brooks joke. Anyway, so I didn't make that joke for obvious reasons. And but so no matter what you write, you're welcome here. And if you've never written, you're welcome here, because everyone has a voice. One last thing, when I do have I write writing craft articles for a magazine, and that will come up in future episodes as well. But right now we're just introducing ourselves, and but when that comes up later, I wanted you to be aware of it. Anything else you want to say before you swish us to the next topic? Ooh, yes. All right. Now what? Why?
Why? What are we doing here?
You tell me.
I'm here because a couple months ago, John Myers said, "Hey, I have something I want to talk to you about," and we talked about it. And it's this podcast, but it's more than the podcast, right?
Correct. So yes, this is so weird that it's just me and Emily here, because that's not what this is. This is about you, and because your voice matters. And we both listen to writing podcasts, and they're great, and they have writing tips and craft tips like what I write for magazines, but there's someone talking to you, which is what we're doing in this episode. That's why it's episode 0 and not episode 1, because this is for you. When this is also how I teach my classes, and so this is your first day in class, right? On the first day of class, we don't go over the syllabus. We don't we don't talk about English. Hope my boss isn't watching. We do team building, and we go outside. We actually leave the classroom and we go outside, and we do team building because I want them to know each other, because I'm going to be with them for 15 weeks. I'm going to be with you for even longer than 15 weeks. But if you can get everyone working together and building this community together in the first week, then the battle's won. And we're trying to build a community of community. Trying to build a community of community. Brilliant. We're trying to build a community of support and encouragement. Emily is the most supportive and encouraging person I know, and so this is, you're missing. You're supposed to be here, and so we're going to do a lot of things that involve you. Hey, let's take a call now. Oh, wait, we can't take a call. Darn it. Can we show a clip? Can we show a movie clip? No. You're supposed to tell me no.
No.
Okay. Dang.
Because you're not here.
Because they're not here yet. But we're going to involve you, and so there'll be a whole community. Emily, tell them about that.
Yeah, so this is just the beginning stages. We do have a website that you can go to, but currently, like, that's pretty much it. But we are hoping to build this out to provide more places for you to interact and to get to know each other. As far as this podcast goes, like John Myers was saying, there's a lot of podcasts out there that I absolutely love that have a lot of tips and craft talks. But sometimes when I'm like just discouraged, I just want to hear someone say like, "Hey, you're not alone," or you're not the only one experiencing this, and here's some encouragement. Here's how you actually get through that. So a lot of this is just for us to be your cheerleaders as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we will have a community sooner rather than later, because it's what we do. Both of us, it's what we do. We build communities, and but we can't do that without you. And so why is that important? And as opposed to having getting lectured every week on here's this writing tip and here's that writing tip, although we'll have writing tips, and but it's important because every voice matters, and your voice matters, even if you think it doesn't. It does. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Oh, we were going to talk about that too. We don't know. Like, we don't want to ever offend anyone, and we don't want to ever have any speed bumps or roadblocks into your participation. And so, like, I was like, do we? Because I used to be an introvert. Well, I'm not now, if you can't tell. And like, what do you call yourself? Is it still okay to call you an introvert? Are you or maybe that's a badge of honor that you're an introvert? But there's room for you, the introvert and the extrovert, and everyone in between. Community is more important than the individual, but the individual is equally important to the community. And here's why: because every person is different, and so if it's just one person or two people in this case, and saying here's the right way to do this or here's the right way to do that, no, that's not how it is at all. And your way, we'll talk about this in a future episode, of there are pantsers and planners, and there are people who outline, people who don't outline, stuff like that. Your way is the right way for you, but you can always learn from the other people who do it differently than you, just like I learned from that from the woman with the warmth writing. That's what I'll call it now, the story that was filled with warmth. And so everyone has a different cultural inventory. What's that, John Myers? I wasn't planning on pulling this off of here. So is it so your cultural inventory? Yeah.
For those who can't see, John has turned around looking through his bookshelf.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good. Do that more often. That's good. So cultural inventory. This is Henry Jenkins, who's like a pop culture scholar guru, and he has observations about everyone's cultural inventory. And I'm going to oversimplify it for you because that's what I do. And but every two people, it's like your fingerprints. Emily and I have a different cultural inventory. You, the listener, if you're in a car with someone else, they have a different cultural inventory. Even twins have a different cultural inventory. Well, what is it? It's every bit of media that you've ever consumed up until now, like including the first 10 minutes of this podcast, has now contributed to your cultural inventory. So what about 5-year-old, 6-year-old twins? How can they have a different cultural inventory? Well, since your cultural inventory is every movie, every comic book, every song you've ever heard, every commercial you've seen on TV, when you're in the grocery store and you're pushing your shopping cart and there's an ad on the grocery store for Miss Mary so-and-so's real estate company, that goes into your cultural inventory. And so you're 5 years old and you have a twin and you live in a 1-bathroom house. You go to the bathroom during the Super Bowl. The twin that's remaining in front of the TV sees a different commercial than what you saw. And then when you get back, that twin leaves the room. Now they have a different commercial that they saw that you didn't see. So there's no difference in there's no two people that don't have a difference in their cultural inventory. And so you might think you don't have anything to contribute. Well, of course you do, because you've had a different life experience than anyone else has had.
We should go to our ground rules, and since we've already covered that, we can kind of keep that short because we've already discussed some of these things, but one of them is that we want to keep things family friendly, right?
Yeah, let's do the little swishy thing though.
Oh, the swishy thing.
That's how I know that we're changing topics, listeners.
Ground rules.
Yeah, so that's one of the ground rules. When we switch topics, we'll hit the swishy noise.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so Emily, when she was when were you? 6th grade, 8th grade? When was it that you wanted to be a writer and you knew that young? Yeah, and so she knew that when she was young. And so if you're listening to this in your car, which we want you to, then or if kids are coming in and out of the room, we don't want you to have to turn us off, right? And so we want to be able to you not have to turn it off. But then I'd say the next ground rule is if something, like if we have a guest on or something and they talk about something that maybe because drama is conflict, right? And so if there's some kind of conflict that might be troublesome, I can't even imagine what that would be, because I know some of our first few guests, I can't imagine them having anything troublesome to say. But we'll tell you ahead of time, and we'll be like, okay, the next 5 minutes, don't let your 4-year-old listen to it. But I can't imagine that happening. Can you?
No, but I mean, there's always going to be things like, I don't know, even if we're talking about things that you're just not ready to talk to your kids about, we'll let you know.
True, that's true. So, and finally, no gambling. Well, no gambling. All right, swishy noise.
Alrighty. So every week we're going to have kind of a big idea that we talk about. And we've already, I think, had some big ideas today that just kind of bled through the rest of our sections, but we did want to get to talking about, and this is related to what our podcast is, getting out of your bubble. So if you go to our website, that's like the first thing you'll see is get out of your bubble. And it's kind of like our call to action for you is what we want you to be part of a community. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing. So even the logo has pictures of people sitting in little bubbles and little pins coming in and popping them, because we want you to be we don't want you to be alone. I've done a lot of writing alone. Like John Myers was just saying, like growing up, I was the only person I knew who was interested in writing. I didn't even know that that there may have been places for me to connect to or people to learn from. I was just trying to do it all alone. And so even after being in grad school, I had to go, oh, I still need a writing group. That's something that I've even just more recently got involved in. So before that, I was writing alone again. And it's not a great place to be in. You need that accountability and support. Even if you're introverted like I am and you think you don't, I would encourage you to be a little more open to embracing community, no matter how small, to allow people to speak into your life, to encourage you, to support you. And that's kind of what we're hopefully here to do.
We're never going to, so that's what we are going to, and she said that perfectly. We're never going to intentionally nudge you out of your comfort zone, but we want you to come out of your comfort zone on your own volition. We want to set up the circumstances that you're comfortable with being yourself, the same person that you are when you're alone. We want you to be that way with us. There's no if you can't tell already, the kind of teacher that I am, I try to be one of them. I don't want a line in between me and my students, and I don't, in a writers group, the one I'm in on Mondays nights, or this one, or in talking to Emily, I don't want there to ever be a line in between any of us. And so, yeah, we want that bubble to be popped. I used to say, Emily corrected me, there will be a segment someday called Emily's Always Right. And I used to say, get out of your mom's basement and go live life, because you have to have a full life to fill. And we are going to talk about this in another episode soon. And so Emily, remind me to tell the listeners the bicycle story in that future episode. And but you have to have a full life, because those are the things that you write about, the things that happen at the grocery store, or the things that you saw in the car accident, or whatever those things are. And online communities are great. We're going to have one, and but our online community is going to encourage you to get outside of the online community and do things out in the real world.
Yeah, and what I told John Myers was, I was like, I lived in my mom's basement.
Yeah.
So my husband and I lived in my parents' basement for a year. So this is not supposed to be, we're not like trying to stereotype that or anything. It's just a short way of saying, get out and do things. And this is, by the way, because I've had a lot of like extroverts, because I've been an introvert my whole life, and I've had a lot of extroverts just be like, oh, just get out of your shell. Oh, you're so shy. Oh, what? And blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, you don't understand what I even want to do. Like, that doesn't even sound fun to me. So I'm not coming from a place of not understanding that desire. I'm coming from a place of learning to appreciate the input of other people in my life, despite my sometimes introverted desire to just do it all on my own.
Again, Emily is brilliant, so she said that better than I could have said that. It's not one way is right and one way is wrong, and
Right.
you need to stop doing this and become like this. That's not what it is at all. And so everyone has an equally worthy voice to contribute, and if you're never around those people, you don't have that contribution into your cultural inventory, into your if you're not around those people, you just don't have that like-minded creatives surrounding you. Swishy time. Yes.
Ding ding.
Eventually, I will
Okay.
stop. Eventually, I'll stop saying swish time, and then, but I'm going to keep saying it.
So, this is the part of the podcast where I ask you to like and subscribe. Part of us trying to create this is we really do need we need you. And so by subscribing, liking, writing a review, you're helping get the word out and helping grow this community and hopefully bring in more people to help us build this and in turn to be in community with you. So we're really hoping that you will interact in that way, which brings us to our call to action.
But wait, I wanted to ask something about like and subscribe.
Sorry.
So what are all the things? So they can like, they can subscribe, they can turn on the little bell, they can put toast in the toaster, they can put something in the blender. What are all the things that they can do for real? I don't know what they are. So
should I just start over that section?
No,
Is that what's happening?
No, keep it going. I want to.
I hit the swoosh too soon. Okay, so what you can do, one of the things you can do is go to our website at writebettertogether.com, and there you'll find a way to subscribe to our newsletter. And on our newsletter, we'll make sure that you're updated when we start groups, when we have new episodes, when we have new blog posts, all of that. And then you can also follow us on all, the major social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Write Better Together. Well, wait, is it at Write Better Together on Instagram, at Write Better TGR at Twitter, and then Write Better Together.
If you go to Instagram, we'll have all the links at the top of the Instagram for sure. So that'll be the first place where we have all of them.
Yeah, and we have all of the links on our website as well. So you can go there and find all of our socials.
Yeah, and comment like that. So podcasters are always like write and describe, write and subscribe. But in our case, we because it's all about you, even though it doesn't seem like it in this first episode 0, it's all about you. You if you don't then I have FOMO, right? And if I was being invited to do it, I'd be afraid I was going to miss out on something. And so it's because it's about you. And so you're not doing it for us, even though you are. You're doing it for you. Okay, now swishy time.
So the call to action is an opportunity for you to interact with us and for us to interact with you, because we want this to be a community built podcast where you are just as much a part of it as we are. So we're going to be asking you to send us things, write things, do things, get out of the house, and then tell us about it.
So exactly. And it's not just you submitting something and hey, maybe we comment it. Like something you submit that we ask for could wind up being a whole episode, or could because it's all about you. And it'll certainly be a bigger part of the episode than us talking about ourselves, and because it's all about you. And so this week we want you to how do we want them to get this to us?
They can email it to us. They can respond in the YouTube comments or on our social media comments.
Okay, so I like that. And
or you can DM us.
Sure, and great. So I also my brain's buffering right now, so I'm thinking.
You're good.
So we're trying to do this live, and so I don't want to stop and everything because it's real. So we're trying to be authentic because we are authentic and we're real. And so I hope you see that. But so I kind of all those, do it whatever's the most convenient for you. And but I like the ones where that are public. And so if you're too shy to share your answer publicly, then by all means email it or DM us. But if you're not, or if you evolve to now you are but later you aren't, I shouldn't even say evolve. If you switch from one to the other, because it's not necessarily, there's no right and wrong. And there's no wrong answers either. I should say that. Ever. There will never be any wrong answers. I like that they're if you were commenting underneath the YouTube video, I like that other people can see that and then they can comment on your comments. Yeah. And so I like that one.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So if money were no object, if training were no object, what would you do? What's your wildest dream It doesn't have to be a job, but it could be a job. It could be a hobby, just whatever. So if money were no object, if training were no object, what would you do? What's your wildest dream? Let us know. Let John Myers and Emily know.
Yep. And we will share that. Obviously, we won't be able to share everybody's every week, but we will have a few that we'll be able to share and discuss in our next episode.
And if we don't do yours, we're going to do this every week. And so we'll do something. We'll share something of yours eventually.
Well, I'm sure everybody is dying to know what's in that little black bag that you waved in front of the camera at the very beginning.
This little black bag? That's what it is. Guess what's in the bag? So we were trying to decide how to end this podcast. And we didn't want to end with subscribe and like and ring the bell, so we didn't. And we want to involve you because it's all about you. And so we had two ideas. Remember, there's someday will be a segment of Emily's always right. And so I'm going to tease you even further. Emily's going to say what her idea is. We're going to end it with both ideas. And then that's another thing. We're giving you two jobs this week. That's another thing you can comment on which idea you like better. And so, Emily, what was your idea?
Oh, my idea was that we just set a random hot take and then you all discuss it.
So every episode would end with a hot take, and then you discuss it everywhere. Everywhere?
Yeah. With like a hashtag Write Better Together hot take or something.
Okay. So that's a perfectly fine idea, but it doesn't involve black bag. My idea, I will do it right now. It doesn't even have a name or a hashtag. Emily's ahead of the game on that one. And so in this bag are, I don't even know how many tiles are in here, are Scrabble tiles. So by next episode, I will know the number of tiles. I know there's 26 letters in the alphabet. And so I will, every week, draw a letter out of the alphabet, out of the Scrabble bag pouch. And Emily will guess what it is. And then next week, if Emily can find a bag of Scrabble tiles before then, she will do, and I will see if I can guess which one it is. So, take the bag of tiles. Emily, what is your guess?
This is where I do a little groan, because I don't understand. I'm gonna guess N.
Oh, you said N?
N, as in
Nancy.
As in Nancy.
Okay. Is it N? If it's N, won't this be exciting, people? Wait, even if
we'll never be able to top it.
Yeah, there will be no topping it. If you're in your car, pull over, because what if this is N? All right, here we go. I'm showing it to the camera, but if you're driving, I'll have to say it. Today's Scrabble letter is C.
What a letdown.
So there you go. Sorry, Emily.
If we do it enough times, the odds will be in my favor, right?
Do you want me to keep the C out? Will that make this more exciting for you? No, I'm putting the C back.
No, keep it in. Keep it in.
Because at some point, the 4 C's would be out, and then you would know.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. That's exciting to me. So there you go. There's an episode. It's now ended. We went over a little bit longer because Emily is so long-winded. She just couldn't contain herself.
Well, part of this too is, we're being transparent. We're not doing the thing where we record 100 episodes before we we release them. We're just like, hey, we can't do this without you, so we have to get something out there, and we're still learning what this is, and it'll be even better, even smoother the longer we do this, because we'll have your involvement.
And when you respond, there's never there is some urgency. Like, if you could respond right away, that'd be great, because we're going to record another one right away. And but if you don't, you don't. You can respond. You might watch this 6 months from now, right? From when we're recording it. And so respond whenever you want, and it will be appreciated no matter what.
For sure. I mean, the sooner you respond, the more likely it'll be for you to be, the more likely we will actually be able to respond to it here. But absolutely, even if it's 6 months from now, do it. It's still a good practice.
I think we did a great job. And guess what? Even though even though it's not about us doing a great job, it's about them doing a great job. And even though normally we would have their participation, and you people listening and watching, please answer our questions so that we'll be able to use those in the next episode. And then we can genuinely say we couldn't have done it without you.
Yes. Yes, indeed. We couldn't have done it without you, sort of. Not today, but in the future.